welcome to the PD Chat Show, the last one of the series, which is Series 2. This is obviously the last one of the year as well. Hence the Christmas jumper. There we go. So all it's bright. So thank you very much for watching. So we've had technical issues. I'll tell you the technical issues. We've got internet, but unfortunately we've got let down by our provider. So we're basically having to use what we can to actually sort of stream it. Because what did we want to do? We wanted to show you our new home, the PD Cave. And that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to show you all that basically is going to involve. So this is our studio. It's slightly bigger than normal. So basically, you can't see it, but there is it's 4 kits in here, and there's 2 behind me. So we've basically got my first love. I had this when I was 12, but not in its. So this is my rock kit. This is maybe it's like my fusion kit. Then I've got the little Jazzette, the 1967, which you see me, and I've got another one over there, which we'll make electronic kits. So this is going to be fun. This is our new home. Also, what I'm going to do, if it will still work, will it still work, Paul? If I go through there? Yeah. Amazing. So I'm going to grab this because I'm going to take you on a little journey. So this journey is going to show you, this is the studio, and through here, you have to forgive me, so if we switch cameras now, you will now see that this is the live studio. So they can see me, Paul? Can you see me, guys? So through here, this is going to be the live area. So as you can see, it's literally is absolutely bare at the moment. But what we've got over here, we've got a stage going in here. This obviously is going to be dressed up. You won't recognise this at all. And we're going to have loads and loads of vents in here. And because it's such a multi-purpose room, obviously we'll have the Palace Drum Clinics in here. We'll also have lots of different events for streaming, private as well as public. And obviously we can have meetings as well. So we might just open up to a meeting of basically drummers gathering. So watch out for that one. So we're going to go back into the other room. So I'm going to run. I'm going to do my Annika challenge Annika thing. Do that. Just put that down. So obviously it was hopefully is it. And we're back. Hopefully, yes, we are back. Now we've got 2 absolutely patient people standing behind the scenes, and I'd like to introduce them now. So please, can I just first of all just to say a big thank you to someone who's not going to be on the screen because he's actually got a gig, and gigs are starting to happen, and they'll see what happens with them. So Robert Bryant can't be with us today, but we have got Pete Cater, and obviously we have got our special guest Joe Clegg as well. So welcome them to the PD Chat Show, and there they are. How about that then? We're all here and we're ready to go. So there we go. So
I can't really hear you, Matt.
You can't hear me at all?
Well, can hear you a little bit.
Okay, let me just do this, see if it makes any difference, and put the mic a little bit closer to myself. Is that better?
Yes.
Good. Thank you very much. Again, thank you guys for being very, very patient. These things are here to test us, aren't they? But thank you, Pete, for joining us as our regular panel member. You have obviously been here since, well, not literally there. You have actually got up and gone to sleep and eaten, hopefully. But you have obviously been with us since the start, since May. So can I say a massive thank you to you? Because this is our last show of the year, so it's all about that. So thank you for your word, wisdoms, and everything else that goes with it. And I'd like to welcome our special guest, Joe. Joe, thank you very much for joining. Thank you again for being very, very patient. Thank you, Joe. Welcome to the PD Chat Show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, our pleasure, our pleasure. So everybody out there knows that we generally talk about our subjects. So our subjects, I think, would be really nice because Joe and Pete, as you well know, for people who actually do follow them, they're musical directors in their own right. Pete, obviously, he runs his own big bands and has done other projects. But Joe, you've also you've MD'd for Ellie Goulding, Mumford & Sons, amongst others, a Clean Bandit, wasn't it?
That's the one.
That's the one. I forgot that for a second. So how, as an MDing drummer, how does that change? Because obviously, normal people basically usually see the MDs basically from at the side or at the front, of the keyboard, or literally with a white stick because they can't find the stage. How does an MD drumming work? How do you work as an MD drummer?
Well, as an MD drummer, it's actually quite difficult. It's twice the amount of work in my experience. I sort of fell into being a musical director, drummer first and foremost. Became musical director because of my love of programming and writing and producing. So when I sat behind the kit and I heard this girl's, Ellie Goulding's new material, she's a brand new artist, and it had, TR-808 drum machines on it and vocal chops, knowing how to use music software, DAW, I could chop it up and sample it and then apply that to playing it live, which turned into reproducing those tracks live. So it's definitely been a journey of becoming a musical director and understanding actually what does that mean to me. In the real sense, in the rehearsal room, it's you sat there playing your instrument, but you're also you're trying to concentrate on playing your part, but you're also in charge of the room. You're in charge of getting the rehearsal from A to B, to getting it done on time, to get the results that are needed. But in some cases, being in a room with up to 100 people, and you're in charge of, in the rehearsal moment, doing that. So it's a lot. It's in my experience, I've also worked a lot away from the drums and MD, so being at front of house, and that's a different experience altogether. Almost, it's easier to focus on the task at hand in that position. But I love the challenge of doing both.
So you say you fell into it. Obviously, is that because obviously circumstances, or because I have got a little thing this time last year. Obviously, I do the pantomime at my local professional theatre, and what happened is that our MD actually went off ill. He got struck down, and I got a phone call literally 2 hours before the show. Goes, I can't make it. I'm still in bed. It's like, right, and there's only two of us down in the pit. There's obviously keyboards and obviously drums, percussion kind of thing. So, and then obviously it's on backing track. Luckily enough, there was a case of norovirus. Not lucky enough because of norovirus, but earlier in the run, and he just thought, do you know what? I'm just going to pre-record all the stuff that's not that we play, which isn't on the track. Thank God he did. Because literally had to, and as I say, it was circumstantial. That I literally said, right, I'm the only person who can do this. I know the show, but I know the show from my pad, and I think we've all got that kind of experience with your pad. And I was running the whole show, so I had the cans on, basically listening to everything else going on. I was playing his music through the computer, playing the tracks, playing my own, having to stop it to the side, and then if things start to go wrong, then you have to basically just alter. It's like which one you're going in and all tracks of it. So it's I had to lie down in a dark room after the first day. So how was yours accidental MDing? How did that come about?
It was definitely accidental. So this came about because of my audition. So this is 2009. The summer 2009, I was looking at music blogs, searching as I always do for new music and things that I like. And I came across this girl called Ellie, and she was brand new. And she was in a cover of an artist that I love called Bon Iver. And I sort of searched online for her and found a website for her. And it was really unassuming. You would not have known that she had just signed a major record deal. Very unassuming. Had a few demos. And there was a small note that said, I'm thinking of putting a band together. If that's you, give me a shout. So I emailed. It went straight to her manager. And I went to meet them. And inevitably I ended up auditioning. And what I didn't know in that moment of time is she just signed with Polydor Universal, and she was a high priority. They were very excited about it. It was her manager's first ever signing. So, and the guy that was producing the record with her together was his first ever record that he was done. He was still at university. And I didn't know all of this. So I got sent the demos for my audition, 3 tracks. And straight away when I heard it, it was like, right, I could go and play acoustic drums to this, which is fine. But half the track it's got 909 kick under it. That's the kick from the track. And there are vocal chops. She sung a phrase on the track and they've chopped it and reversed it. But that starts the song. So I just said to them, can you put me in touch with the producer? I'd love to get some stems. I'd love to get the stems of all the electronic drum part. Well, all the drums, just as separate tracks, and the vocal chops. Because I've got an idea about how I could kind of go about in my audition. And they were like, yeah, fine. The producer at the time, he'd never stemmed anything out. So it was interesting. And I'd never received a stem set from anybody. So I had just had an idea, heard the song, I had an idea, and I went to audition. So I lived in Lancashire, and I set up at 4 a.m, got to London, Bosch Studios, unloaded my kit, and played my song on the drums. And I said, could you give me 1 minute? I'm going to set up my laptop be really quick. And I had an SPDS, a laptop with Ableton, my own DI rack, and plugged it all in very quickly. and then just hit play. And we played the same song again, but I played all the vocal chops on my SPDS, and I played all the drum samples on pads. And I'd made decisions, I'd probably stepped way out of line actually, but I made decisions on what I thought this track could be live. And we played it in the room, and I got the gig there and then. So
yeah.
So I didn't know what a musical director was, and I wasn't hired as a musical director. I was hired as the drummer. But then within a month, I was going from no gig to a gig that she was winning all these awards, and we were playing Saturday Night Live and Jules Holland like 2 weeks after I auditioned for her. So it happened very quickly. And the band was a three-piece. It was her, Ellie, she's playing acoustic and playing some drums, me, and her producer was playing keys and bass and running some of his soft synths. And he didn't want to tour. I'm not a touring musician. I'm a producer, and I've just made a #1 record. I'm not going on tour. So her manager asked me to be the musical director, and I didn't really know what that meant. He said, "Well, what you did with that song in your audition, we just do that with all the songs." I'm like, "Yeah, fine." Do I get paid a bit more? I'm like, "Yeah, we'll pay you a bit more." I'm like, "Fine, I'll become that." And I didn't know what I was doing. So that's why I always say like it was an accident. I had an idea for what I thought the song could be live. And then I just made sure that I learned. Like you said, it was a lot of sleepless nights. It was a lot of like working 20-hour days to try and pull this thing together. But it was my first experience of doing it. It was super exciting. But that started what is now, 11, 12 years of working in the industry doing this.
Yeah. Brilliant. Well, as I say, it was always nice to find out the stories behind the gigs as well, isn't it? So thank you very much for that, Joe. Guys, if you're watching, obviously, thank you very much for your patience again. If you can basically sort of put your comments, obviously, in, it's Facebook, it's not Facebook, it's YouTube rather than Facebook, but you can put your comments in so we can see it. If you've got anything to ask the questions as well, and obviously, you put your own anecdotes in there. So please, can you actually just, put the comments in and ask the questions as the same kind of way, but obviously on YouTube now, which we never thought we'd be doing. But absolutely brilliant. Pete, I'd like to come to you because obviously MDing the Pete Cater Big Band, obviously you've more involvement as well, obviously, because you literally running it, you're doing everything with. But was MDing kind of always in your mind to basically MD a band of any sort?
Well, yeah, if you're going to have your own project, if you're going to be the leader of your own band and you're going to hire musicians and decide what they're going to play and decide how they're going to play it, then of course it's incumbent upon you to take charge. Otherwise, you have no business being there. But what I think is very interesting about what Joe was saying, and I think he's being unduly modest, if I may be candid, is that he went up for a situation and he tried a bit harder and he said, "Look, I can do this." And this is how he became an MD, just by going the extra mile and giving the input to an artist or a management company, producer, whatever. When you try that bit harder, you get the result. And he is testimony to what he did. My situation is entirely different. Yeah, I do MD for a couple of people. I have done over a number of years, but that's mostly predicated upon the fact that I know exactly what tempo they want their songs to be played at. When we're doing everything live, there's no backing track, there's no click. It's all just live musicians, and certain artists trust me implicitly because I just know exactly what tempo they want their music to be played at, and I know how to handle the musicians and to get the best out of them. And it's really very simple. It's really as simple as that. As far as my own bands are concerned, I have to take responsibility. If I'm going to put a band out there, and as I say, if I'm going to be hiring a bunch of musicians, whether it's 3 or 6 or 15, I have to know exactly what I want them to do. I can't be sitting around waiting for somebody else to second guess me. So from my point of view, the MD prerogative is slightly different because it is to do with what I do as a musician, and I put my name in the front of various bands, and you have to not only know how to take care of people and understand what you want them to do and what you want to ask them to do, but you have to give them something to do as well. You have to know what music you want them to play and how you want it to be interpreted.
Because obviously there's many MDs that I expect all of us have actually worked with, but from what qualities do you want to basically give the musicians and stuff like that? What qualities do you think as an MD that you actually bring to your band, Pete?
I rehearse very quickly. I expect. I know you, Matt. You've been there. You've been standing in the wings when I've been rehearsing my band, so you've seen how I operate. And I don't want to over rehearse things. Okay, when it comes time for the curtain to go up and the show to start, I want everybody obviously to know what they're going to do and in what order they're going to be playing the music. But I don't want them to be so over rehearsed that we've rehearsed the life out of the music. I have seen this done so many times. I've been part of it so many times. You just need to leave a little bit of, I don't know, tension there, so that when the lights go up, the curtain goes up and it's showtime, everybody's still a little bit on edge. I don't like everybody to be too comfortable. I like there to be just that little bit of, on your toes, just just being really aware of what you're doing. And I don't want to MD stuff to the point where people are doing it in their sleep, because that's not where the best performances come from, I believe.
Oh, so right. I think it's we've all worked out to MDs, and it's like those are the ones that you really sort of latch onto. So they know what they're doing, because obviously you don't want to blow yourselves out in rehearsals, especially sort of trumpet players. And I can remember when because a lot of people know that, so I do a lot of orchestral stuff as well. One of the actual violinists in the City of Birmingham Symphony Orchestra I was working with at the time, he actually jumped literally from the second violins to it's like an assistant conductor. And every time he was there, everybody used to love him, because it's like, in rehearsals, they'd be rehearsing and say, right, let's not do that now because we're in a different hall. We'll balance that when we're over at the Symphony Hall. It's like, right, that's it. Thanks very much. Was that it? Yeah, it's like, we've done what we need to do. I don't need to play anymore. And it's like he got so much respect from his fellow musicians. Joe, do you find yourself, is that the kind of MD you want to basically bring to us, like as making sure that people are at their best because you're not overworking them?
It's something I've arrived at over time. My default would be, when I started, was to work people hard as I could to get the best results, because we never had enough rehearsal time. And with my first experience as musical director was on the bubble of one gig that was just exploding. There was never enough time. So if I had a rehearsal to put a new song in the show or to do a TV, in my mind, it was never enough. So I'd get the band there at 10 a.m. and we'd be done at 10 p.m. and that's it. Because I can work like that. But over the years of sort of getting out of that, I guess, experience, and learning that always often doesn't get the best results from people, because of over-rehearsing, but also because of just grinding them down. By the time you get to the show, they're just knackered. But now I know that there are just other ways of going about it. But on the shows that I work on, there's so much technology involved. And one of my skills, my main skills, is technology and programming, and being a really integral part of how a modern kind of pop show works. Is that I always work really long, late hours anyway. So I'm learning to, when I've got my band in the room, they're working only the hours that they need to, and it's really focused and intentional, and it's not 12-hour days. It's just as long as I need them. Just building up for that moment where I've got the artist in the room. If I've got the artist there for 2 hours, then everything else has to be absolutely perfect for those 2 hours. So it does differ per show that you work on, because of the parameters change. But yeah, I've definitely learned that people don't need to be over-rehearsed. It doesn't get the best results.
I remember I was very similar, well, not quite a similar situation, but I was on Thriller Live. I started a Thriller Live show. Many people know that. And for the fourth tour, we went to Holland and Manchester, Northern Ireland, all kind of stuff. It was like a 6-week tour. The assistant MD was stuck in Australia without a visa, and the actual MD supervisor, he went out and did another show. And it's like, okay, great. And default, they said, would I do it because of my background and everything else? And I said, yeah. And the first rehearsal, we had basically two rehearsals with the band. There was a couple of changes in the band, and it was a case of I didn't really know the show because I was basically had what was in my mix, what I needed to play the show to my best abilities, and so I didn't have like many like backing vocals in. I didn't have like many like guitar riffs in there because I didn't need it. And then all of a sudden I had to relearn the show, and then obviously he said, right, there we are, there's the show, off you go. And then we literally opened up a day later, and I had to run the whole show. But one thing that I actually managed to, I think, you guys have definitely hit the nail on the head because being a player, you know about this, is that when we did sound check, our sound checks used to last for absolutely ages, get there. And so I had it done. It's like, at our first one, I said, okay, is everyone happy? Yeah. I said, right, that's it, end of sound check. What do you mean end of sound check? It's only 20 minutes. I said, do you not want to do any more? So I don't. Everything's good. House is good. Sound's good. Everyone's good. That's it. Really? Amazing. And that was my first day. Because, as I say, it's that kind of thing that I didn't want to overwork myself because I had that extra work to do because operating technology, which I'd never operated on that show before and stuff like that. So it's very daunting. But I think us drummers, I think we're very adaptable to certain things like that because obviously we generally lead stuff all the time, from behind the drums. Would you agree with that, Pete? That we're very adaptable as musicians because we are generally a leader in a group anyway.
Well, adaptable varies from person to person, but what I do believe is that if somebody else is in charge, once they go 1, 2, 3, 4, it's ours. We're in charge, and that's what people expect from a drummer. And this is why drummers make such good MDs. I mean, you look at Joe and what he does. You look at guys like Rich Brook, who does the Rewind Festival, which is the most incredible onerous task to MD like 24 different artists in this 3-hour show, all of whom are doing like 3 or 4 of their biggest hits from the 1980s, just to be on top of all that. And it is the drummer's place to do that because we have, as part of our skill set, knowing the right tempo, knowing just where the pocket is, and that is why drummers make such great musical directors. You look back through the history of music, there have been so many great drummer MDs. And look at Bobby Rosengarten, who was the MD on the Dick Cavett show in the United States for so many years. The drummer is, and I think this is an area in which we're not perhaps as appreciated as we might be. The drummer is a natural musical director because we know the tempos. This is why my dear beloved friend Selena Jones has had me MDing her gigs for about 6 years, and for Selena to have not changed drummers in 6 years is absolutely unprecedented because she trusts me and she knows that I know where she wants the tempos to be, and that more than anything, you can be a great pianist or whatever, guitar player, MD, but if you can't put it in the pocket where the artist wants it every time, then you're not really fulfilling the gig, I believe.
Guys, there's some comments coming in. Please, obviously, put your own comments in as well.
I hope they're not rude.
They're not rude comments. I know. Yeah, we haven't got our Christmas parties this year, so they've been quite clean. So well done, guys. But yeah, just to basically put on what's actually behind me. Dave Phillips. First of all, thank you, Dave, for all your support throughout this year. It's been absolutely amazing. Is it British Racing Green? No, it's not. You can.
It's Matt Green.
It's Matt Green. This is my room. Now you can see this is our.
Why don't you paint your drums green?
Well, I am famous. I am famous in every single DIY store, so there we are. Now, can you see? Obviously, over there, it's the it's as we all know. So that's been our like almost our logo now. This one here, but obviously behind it, it's the old kind of emblem, I suppose, of the Parish Drum Clinic, which is the Gretsch Birdland snare. So it is the colour, which is a Cadillac green, and you can see we've almost matched it here. So yeah, so it's Cadillac matte green. So there we are. So there's the colours. But yeah,
matte green rather than gloss green.
yes, it's definitely matte. I'm not that bright. So there we are. So
Far be it from me to say.
well, yeah, you said many things, Pete, and I agree with all of them. So there we are. But yeah, it's, as I say, Martin Ollie's saying, so thank you, Martin, for obviously being patient. So I know you've been texting us. So, Martin, very true, Pete. Jack Parnell, Kenny Clare, Buddy Rich, obviously, to name a few MDs. Jack Parnell, I think I was just actually talking about Jack Parnell the other day, that, and it was to do, obviously, with Ronnie Varell and the Muppets. And, we always forget about these guys. They successfully ran, and in massive shows as well, didn't they? So, thank you very much for that, Martin.
Well, can I just jump in on that?
Please do, yeah.
Because a lot of my musician friends of 1-2 generations older than I were very often under Jack Parnell's baton when he was conducting at ATV, the Muppet Show, and all the other things that he used to do. And they said without exception that Jack was the best conductor they ever worked with, because he had a drummer's pulse in his hands. And 1, 2, 3, 4. Absolutely. I've worked with trombone players and saxophone players, and when they conduct, it's all over the place. There's no sense of pulse about what they're doing. But all the guys, my great friends, people like Don Lusher, Roy Willits, Tony Fisher, all those great musicians of that golden era, they all said without exception that Jack on the stick was the best, because he was a drummer, so he had the pulse in his hands.
As I say, as many drummers say, we've got. I want to actually introduce to everyone who's basically behind the scene. You won't see him because due to social distancing and all that. But in our control room over there, we have. So you will see him because we're on his live stream at the moment. The man, the wizardry with all the technology, is Paul Edwins. He's joined the Palace Drum Clinic now. So I just like to say thank you very much, Paul, for sorting this all out. And if you are watching, just share this so other people can find us as well, please, as well. We've got obviously Josh. You've heard Josh basically does a lot of our posting and everything else. So thank you to Josh. But also join us is everyone's dear friend. We had him I think back in June or August time. I can't remember because we've been so far along. That we had Gary Alcock. Now Gary obviously used to run. He still does when he gets to gigs. The Gary Alcock All Stars band, and so there's another one. Another drumming MD. And I agree with you. It's that pulse. Now, obviously, Joe, you got a lot of technology with you, so obviously, pulse maybe not the greatest issue, but it's how you deal with that as well, isn't it? I suppose when you're programming, it's is the artist going to be able to sing to that kind of tempo? Is it just the words are going to mess up and stuff like that if it's a little bit faster? How do you approach your kind of the tempo-isk of the MD wise?
Well, again, it is very different. I'm not counting anybody off, and we're on grid all the time, nearly every show that I work on, bar 1 or 2 exceptions in my experience. But the grid, the tempo, is open to interpretation in the rehearsal stage. But I was going back to saying that I like to work really hard in terms of time-wise in rehearsals. It's because those details of setting the key, if that's different from the record, or setting a tempo if it needs to be anything different from the recorded work. That stuff needs to be done in advance so that when we get to showtime, we can change those things. But the shows that I work on, when you nudge a tempo by even 1 ppm, when you've got time code and MIDI routings that are going to front of house to change presets on consoles, then it doesn't work. The show falls over. So it is interesting, the click, once you're locked into it, once I hit play, we're in. But the thing that I've kind of pursued for the last decade is how do I use, if there's going to be a grid there, there's always going to be a click. That's the foundation of what we do in terms of time and pulse. Where is the pulse of people playing this live? So how can we work around that? There's a pocket, obviously, as a drummer that we'd play with that, and we play as a band off that, but there's only so much room you've got within it. But so for Ellie, I started exploring using the use of technology, and if I was playing, there's one tour that we did where there was like a 10-minute segue, and the bass player's playing synth bass, which is a MIDI controller from a laptop. the keys player was playing piano, which was a MIDI controller. I was playing all pads, all over MIDI. So you had the entire band playing what sounded like this amazing dance thing in an arena, but we're all playing it live. So the track, there wasn't any track. It was us playing software instruments live with a grid, which is something that I get really excited about, because the idea of playing to playback, backing track, is often kind of frowned upon, as it's a really sterile environment. It isn't open for any kind of interpretation. It's just press play, you play a song, you finish. But with technology as it is now, that doesn't have to be the case. I can start a track and have the computer follow my time by listening to what I'm playing, and the grid follows it. Or I can have all my musicians, all the samples, all changing in real time, so that I've got a friend, Donovan Hepburn, who you guys probably know is a good friend of mine, another great MD drummer, somebody that I've learnt loads from. He came to see the show, the Ellie show at the O2, and he said, "Oh, what happened to that section? It was 10 minutes. It was like it could have been tracked, but it sounded like you guys having this natural pocket, but all electronic sounds, what I was hearing. And it was this natural, wonderful movement as 4 people playing together for 10 minutes. And that for me was the biggest compliment I've ever had, because yes, you can still have musicality in pocket with a grid, with a show that is fully locked in and time coded and video and pyro and all that. There is still room with technology to be creative and have natural sounding players play it. Does that make sense?
Complete sense, because it is an art, actually, isn't it, to play into that click, that backing track, isn't it? Because
massively, yeah.
Yeah, because obviously everyone thinks that you have to play on there, but you can actually bend time. I always think there's 3 parts to that click. Obviously, it's right in the middle. So if you want to make it sound laid back, obviously, then you play right on the back end. Or if you want to sound want to go forward, you play on right on the front end of the click. And obviously that's something that obviously that's just years of experience trying to do, because obviously people out there practice to their metronome, so practice to their songs, all kind of stuff. But it's that experience, isn't it, of actually trying to make sure that you are playing as one, but almost forgetting about that click. Would you say that, Joe? So you always try and forget that and just try and play what's actually on stage?
Yeah, absolutely. My goal is to not even hear the click, even on a pop show when you're so locked in with the structure of a show. Like, I don't want to hear it. I want to get to a point where I'm playing from the heart and everything. We're all locked in as a band, and the parameters of where this song is, we're in it, but we're finding the pockets as musicians within that. There's an added layer that I've found of, it's definitely an art that you learn to play in time, and whether you get to a point where you can sort of place yourself in front or behind that, or vary that for pocket. But when you're playing drum pads, and those drum pads are not, so it's not a pad where there's a sound in a hardware box. You play a pad and that is translated over MIDI over a, let's say, 20-meter cable run to side of stage to a laptop. You're also playing with latency. So when I'm playing a 10-minute section, which is all pads, a KT10 on the floor and all like the PD8s and whatever it is, I need to play pocket with myself and the song, with the click, with the musicians, but also with a 3.5 or 4 millisecond latency from when I hit the pad to hitting the laptop, then a further 5 or 6 millisecond latency by the time it gets to the front of the house. So it's then there's the whole new thing. I definitely, something I've had to learn how to find groove. I thought I had a good pocket, but when I start playing sample-based stuff, it's something new altogether. And what it looks like, it's a really easy thing to do, just to play 2 and 4 on a pad and you hear a clap, or you're hearing all these electronic drum sounds change. But if you're not playing an analog machine and it's all MIDI, there is latency involved in a way that you have to trick your brain into playing that.
Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? As I say, Pete, you never have that problem, obviously, because you're always, on acoustic instruments and stuff like that, aren't you? But is there any, we talk about this, like the pocket and the groove. People out there sometimes, I think they get a bit. Is it the same? Is it like, I'm just basically playing devil's advocate for everyone here. Is it the same? Is it slightly different? What do those 2 things mean to you, Pete? Sort of groove and pocket. Are they the same? Are they different?
It very much depends on circumstances. I mean, for instance, last week, I had a session for a songwriter, and it was it was all very, very simple, just straight up and down, 2 and 4. Very simple hi-hat parts, very simple bass drum parts, but they got like a basic track with some rhythm guitar and some vocals and a click on it. And once I go in and I put the drum part on that, and it may just kind of, what I tend to do in those circumstances where you've got these live elements, as I say, like, for example, rhythm guitar and some vocals, I will play to those rather than the click. And the click is just kind of in the background as a guide. And once I've put my stuff down, they will completely lose the click from that track and they'll play to what I've put there. So it retains that magical kind of human feel. I mean, I'm fascinated by what Joe does and this whole issue with latency. And I could see how if I had to do that and you know, kind of play slightly in front on pads just to compensate for the latency, then going back to acoustic drums, I'd probably be all that. How does that work, Joe? Is that a problem? You've been doing all this and then you just have to go back and play like live acoustic drums? Did you have to pick back the other way?
Yeah, it's really tricky because in a song, more often than not, there'll be an element of acoustic happening with electronic at the same time. So I'm playing a pad or I'm playing most times like a trigger pad, like a Roland KT10 or something. And you go from that pedal to your bass drum, to your actual acoustic kick. And the feel's completely different, but the response is different in terms of perceived timing of it. So it's definitely something that I've had to really work on over the years, for sure. I'm a very analytical, I love the details. So I would every night go and listen to the front of house recordings and analyze the latency coming to front of house from stage anyway, and work on all the technology to try and bring that down as far as possible. But I've done experiments figuring out, okay, an SPDS-X that has 60 milliseconds of latency. And as a human, I can feel that when I play it. But that's quicker. If the sounds are in the box, that's quicker in terms of response than it is if I put a MIDI cable out of that. If the MIDI cable goes to my machine and Ableton Live, the software that I use in all my shows, it means that one pad, ergonomically, in the show as a drummer, I'm playing that pad all the times, and that pad can be anything, anytime I hit it. And it can filter and automate. It can be 1,000 sounds on the one pad. And Ableton, the technology, allows me to harness that, which is creatively, that is the stuff that I love, because I can get this drum part exactly like the record and then add myself to it. But to do that, I've got to learn to play with latency, and that's just part of it. So for me, I've started as a drummer and became an accidental MD, but my mindset is I want the best possible outcome at front of house. So as a musician, if it's something I've got to learn to adapt to, then I'm going to make sure that I'm the best that I can be at it. But yeah, it's a mind melt. It was when I started, for sure.
I can understand that, because on certain things that I've done that I've had to lose electronics, that you because of that, for instance, if one springs to mind, I was actually playing a capacitor on an SPDX kind of thing, and because that's just like a little bit, it's like
brutal.
Yeah, it's just like why am I killing myself doing it? But you have to be so in front of it to make it sound with the rest of the band and stuff like that, don't you? You know, it's just like, and your mind's just like going, am I right? Am I not right? And it's like, then when nobody says anything, so it sounds great, you go, oh, I've done it, you know, your mind just basically just goes, thank you very much. But it is tricky, I've just noticed that we have got someone who's just come on, Ben Roberts. Ben, happy birthday, happy 15th birthday today, young man. Ben has been an avid follower of the Palace Drum Clinic for the last 4 years, so thank you, Ben, and we've seen you mature into a great little drummer. So happy birthday for today, 15th birthday. I hope you've received lots of drummy stuff. There we go. And then obviously, there's be obviously stuff in the new year, especially from can save up for, including the PD camp, which is happening on the 19th to the 21st of February next year. So please, guys, I know Christmas is coming up, but come January, once obviously you've exhumed enough mince pies and brandy and sherry and turkey, if you're in that way. I personally want a goose, but I'm not allowed it. But we please, in the new year, please, it's like, the camp is only going to be online. It's going to be Zoom. Trust me, it's going to be a lot better technical than this, because obviously we won't have all the issues we have today. But hopefully we've done a good job to getting you to this chat show tonight. But please, guys, it's out there. Go to the PalaceDrumClinic.com, go to the events, and it's actually there. It's got its own page. Sign up. It's only £50 to secure your place, and then obviously by the 1st of February thing. But it's not that expensive for a 3-day. So basically, it's like a Friday from 1 o'clock till 6, Saturday 10 o'clock till 6, and a Sunday from 10 o'clock till 4. It's only £195. It will be on Zoom, but it'll be best kind of thing, the situation we'll have at the moment until we actually go into face-to-face with the amount of people we are trying to bring in one place. Because you'll be sitting on your own kit at home, which is your familiar place. And obviously all you need basically is a great practice pad and a paper and pen, and obviously very good internet, which we didn't have at the beginning, but we got now. So there we are. So please sign up for that, and obviously lots of things coming up, including membership to the PDC, which is going to be happening in March. So watch out for that as well. So happy birthday, Ben, again for your 15th birthday today. I've just realised, obviously, the time, because we started late, but thank you guys for watching. If you've got any more questions, please put them down, or any comments. It's a slightly different today because we're on YouTube, but it works in the same fashion, so please keep them coming in. We'd love to. And I say, if you are watching, just spread the news saying, guys, they're on YouTube at the moment, but the link is actually up on the Facebook page. So there we go. But there we are. But I just want to come to... just back to you, Joe. Talking about all the latencies and all the stuff you've done. You've just launched a brand new drum samples library, haven't you?
Yeah, no latency involved in that. That's fine. So it's just like a thing that I put together during lockdown. Just a nice thing to focus on. Yeah, so I've been releasing solo things over the last couple of years, and I just love weird sounding drums. And I work in pop music where it's all clean and it's like the record. And the music that I make and I'm into isn't that. It's all manipulated and distorted and affected. So I did an instrumental record last year, or the year before, and did some licensing off the back of that, like instrumental stuff with drums. So I started then turn that into sample packs. And I, just as a goal, thought, well, I wonder if I can launch a label and do that. And I did do that. So started that a couple of months ago, and released there's a free thing that I put out. It's really based on Ableton Live, the software, the DAW, with loads of loops. I've got loads of drummer friends that have contributed loops to it. Andrew Marshall, who plays with a girl called Billie Eilish, my friend Adam Marcello, who is drumming MD for Katy Perry, and Gunnar Olsen, who's in New York, who plays with Bruce Springsteen. And they've all added their own take to the loops and samples that I made. So yeah, I took 3 classic drum machines. I took the 808, the CR78, and this hip machine called the Elka Drumstar from the 80s, like 85, I think. It's a really cool sounding machine. And I sampled them, so they're all nice and clean, and then I ran them out through my studio of all analog outboard. So spring reverbs and tape echoes and space echoes and different kinds of distortion, and created software instruments. So yeah, I've created this whole thing for myself, and I've got loads of artists lined up to release content for. So yeah, it's a fun little thing.
And if anyone wants to download your samples, stuff like that, where can they go to? But on the internet.
Yeah, it's just go to my website, which is www.dust-palace.com. The company's called Dust Palace. There's an Instagram, which is at Dust Palace. And you'll find all the content on there and all the links and videos and whatnot. Thank you for the plug. Very kind.
No problem. But why Dust Palace? Because I can understand, because obviously I've inhaled so much dust in the last 2 weeks, and we are the Palace Drum Clinic, so I feel I was a Dust Palace in the last 2 weeks. But why is it called Dust Palace?
Well, because for last year, I've moved back to Lancashire. I have wife and children, and that's where I'm from. And in my town that I'm in, Burnley, you know Burnley, Lancashire? One of the biggest special effects companies for live music is based here in Burnley, and called BPM SFX, and they've got this huge Victorian mill, and they do like all the lasers and confetti and fire and all the stuff you see at massive stadium shows. That's what they do. And they had this big space, and I know the guy that owns the company, so he invited me to come up to use their space, but it was on the proviso that I kind of fixed it up and did my own thing with it. And so it's an old dusty Victoria Mill is exactly what it is. So the Palace part was just a tongue in cheek. It's my aim. I'd love a palatial studio at some point, but those things just cost a lot of money. But it's not where I am now. I've just moved in for the winter into AMS Neve, Neve consoles. They're based here in Burnley. So next door is their shop floor where they make all their consoles and their 1073s. So I've got a little space to program in, to do my samples, and I've got a drum kit over there just for the winter.
So sounds like you sort of go to your summer house, your winter house and stuff like that. So
winter and summer in Burnley, just different ends of town. It's a classic northern life.
Rains, one doesn't. The other one rains, the other one doesn't. Yeah, absolutely.
One rains in, the other one doesn't.
So there we go. Guys, to say, if you want to go, obviously, I've heard some of the samples. They sound absolutely incredible. So please go on to there. I've just noted we've only got 20 minutes left. So please get all of your questions in to Joe. If it's anything about samples and stuff like that, now's the time to actually do it. So please get your samples in. Again, if you are watching this, please spread the news that we've only got 20 minutes left and we are actually over here rather than on Facebook. Well, again, the link is actually on Facebook to get people over here. So there we go. So actually fantastic. We've only got 20 minutes left of the Palace chat show, really, the PD chat show. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about what we're basically hoping to see in the new year, because obviously I've talked a lot about what we're actually going to be doing here at the Palace Drum Clinic. Personally, I'm basically putting much as energy as I possibly can into this for you guys, because obviously, we can do it selfishly. So I talk every single week. We love doing these chat shows. We love talking to each other. But it'd be useful for an audience giving us the feedback and everything else. So, so we're working very, very hard. Pete, what's anything in the new year? Have you got anything coming up that's like any special, or basically just same old, or?
Well, there is no same old at the moment, is it? I do actually have a couple of gigs in January, and I'm hoping they're not going to get cancelled. I did a gig last Sunday at Ronnie Scott's, which was terrific, and it was just as much a sense of relief as anything else, just to be back on stage with some great musicians, and to be in the band room having some great banter and, just talking trash the way musicians like to do. and the show was sold out weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks in advance. And just the enthusiasm from the socially distanced Ronnie Scott's audience, where, they're kind of legally able to sell about half the room. And just to do that was incredible. And I have a couple more things like that in the new year, and fingers very, very heavily crossed that we're going to be able to go ahead. But with nothing going on, I'm just sitting at home practicing like a demon on the drums. I'm playing a lot of piano, writing some little bits of music for a couple of things that I've been asked to do. And just trying to stay positive and keep focus and retain a sense of purpose. I think that's really important for all of us right now. It's just to remember why we're here, and just to kind of keep plugging away at that.
Yeah, and we still will be here as well, and that's I think the best thing about it. We still will be here. Joe, got anything coming up in the new year?
Well, similarly, I mean, my business is 99% live music. So this year has been it's a challenge for that. So next year, I don't know yet what that looks like. But like Pete was saying, that it's really important to fix goals and to stay fresh and creative and have things to work towards. When I talk about working on the live show stuff, I'm used to working flat out every day and traveling, and that's my life. So being at home for 9 months is amazing. 10 months with the family is amazing. But without a goal, without anything to work towards, that could be a really difficult thing. Hence me starting things like a sample company. I also do educational products. I do things for Ableton Live for the software company about how to use software on live shows. So there are lots of things I'm working on. Like I said, a sample library. I've got some solo stuff that I'm working on. lots of things in the works, but the usual, the live music, who knows? We'll see.
Yeah. So, guys out there, I'd like to hear what you're going to be hopefully doing in the new year. Because New Year's resolutions, mine is not to actually make any, because then you can't break them. But, if you've got anything, especially for drumming wise, please let us know. It'd be interesting to hear of what actually would be, So if you have got any kind of drumming solutions. But I have got one thing that I would like to basically just to say, because I don't want to run out of time before this, is that I have got a list of basically of everybody who actually has been on these chat shows. And there's been many, many more. Obviously, we've had our countdowns, we've had our conversations as well over on Instagram. But I'd just like to thank everyone who has to be involved. You have to give it to me because there is quite a long list here. So first of all, I'd like to thank Tom Bradley. It was basically the first one we kicked off. It was the idea, and I can't believe I actually did this. I actually read to the public, which everyone knows me. It's like I never read anything. I always make sure I do all my prep beforehand because I stutter and splutter when I start reading. But I actually read something, and I do believe it's like, what makes a good drummer. And it kicked off the whole PD chat show. So thank you, Tom. And obviously Pete and Rob Bryan was there as well. And then we had Daisy Palmer, we had Gabo Dornay, we had Todd Sukerman, we had Ian Palmer, Ian Matthews, Pete Lockett. The vintage view was Tristan Head and Simon Wagstaff. We had Dave Phillips, we had Cole Palmer, we have Gary Astridge, we've had Mike Sleeth, we had Gary Orcock, we had Scott Pellegrim, we had Hardcase and Botworks, which was Dave Ayres and Chris Bennett, Dorothy Taylor, we had Carl Brazil, Paul Vertigo, Stuart Bruce, Michael Shack, Russell Gilbrook, and now Joe. So I'd like to thank all of those personally for actually being part of the PD chat show since May. Where can you see all these? Well, they will be on the YouTube site, basically it's on my YouTube site until we obviously get enough people actually change the name to Palace Drum Clinic. But they will definitely, I will make sure they're all up to date actually on the Palace Drum Clinic website, palacedrumclinic.com. So if you've missed anything, they're always there, and they're always on Facebook as well, because obviously Facebook records everything that we do, including all the countdowns as well. So there's many, many things there. So, that is my personal before we run out of time. So thank you all of those people, and we'll make sure that we give them. And we'd love to see most of you actually here, next year and the years to come as well. So thank you very much. Is there any more questions I need to read out? I don't think so at the moment. So thank you very much for doing that. Keep those comments coming because we've only got a few moments left. I would like to do something which I don't think I've ever done, so I'm going to indulge myself. Pete, I've been wanting to ask you this question for many, many a month, because I often see you sitting there with your left hand working at this new technique that you've basically been relearning, I think that you keep saying. Can you give me an insight, me, not the public, they're not watching now. Can you give me an insight, basically, how is that coming on and what actually is it?
It's not a new technique at all. It's something I kind of came up with in, I believe, 1996, where I just kind of challenged the, I don't know if I can reach. Bear with me one moment, I'll be right back.
Talk to Joe. I'll talk to Joe. Yeah, Pete's turned into a book. So, Joe, oh, is he? Right. Oh, he's back. Okay, right. Carry on.
And I'm back in the room.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll tell you two things. And this is all to do with traditional grips. If you don't play traditional grip, you're not interested in it, then just go somewhere else. In 1938, and this is a first printing from 1938, this book was published, Gene Kruger Drummer. Okay? And similarly, about 3 or 4 years later, and this is also a first edition, this book was published. And you can see what it is. It's the Buddy Rich snare drum rudiments. That's what it looked like originally. And what those books posit about hand technique is basically where everything that we have today comes from. Well, those were the first two mass circulation drum tutor books. And what's contained in those books is in one form or another just handed down. If your drum tutor didn't study from those books, then your drum tutor studied from those books. So there's what's in there as far as hand technique, as far as these things are concerned, is incomplete. Okay, and what you have to do is look further back to before there were mass market, high volume drum tutor books, and look at what they say about hand technique, and it's completely different from the received wisdom that we have today. And that's what I'm working with. And I started, as I said, about 25 years ago, I started messing around because of what I perceived as shortcomings in my technique, and started experimenting with stuff. And research has subsequently proved to me that way back before those classic books were written, drummers were thinking in a completely different way about how the hand technique works.
Right, so we'll see that shortly, will we?
And some of it has kind of found its way. Once again, one moment, has found its way inadvertently found its way down. If you look at like a lot of like heavy hitters, how they play, where they play from the back of the hand, and the thumb and index finger are relatively relaxed. That's what the guys were doing in the early part of the 20th century. That's the way the old players used to play. And then it's absolutely fascinating and liberating and life-changing as far as what your hands can do is concerned. And, just if you play trad, just squeezing the drumstick right up in here in your thumb and index finger, that's not going to take you very far. There's a much better way of doing it.
So hopefully you'll see.
I want to know, how do I learn? Teach me.
You have to give me money.
Is that how it works? Right.
Cash.
And to be honest, there's no. I've said many people Pete's one of my favourite clinicians, teachers, kind of thing, because his ideas and stuff like that. So hopefully, this, when you can launch it out to the public, Pete, then it'll be. I think it'll be amazing.
Matt, that's very gracious and generous of you to say that. But what I like to do, part of my ethos as an educator, as a clinician, is to kind of make people think. You don't just say, okay, well, here it is, do this. You have to inspire people to think for themselves. You have to teach them how to teach themselves, rather than just kind of handing them everything and say, well, yeah, if you do this, you might get a bit better. You've got to stimulate the student to think for themselves, to be proactive in how they think about what they're doing when they're playing. That to me is. That's been all the stuff that's ever worked for me down, 50 plus years of playing. And the best stuff has all come that way, not where somebody has just kind of spoon-fed me something or handed me something on a plate, but where they kind of provoke you into thinking, into having an inquiring mind into how all this works. That to me is where. That's where the real important stuff starts hatching out.
Thank you, Pete. And as I say,
Pete, take my money. Take my money, Pete. I want to know.
Okay.
Right, we'll hook you two together after the show. But thanks, Pete, as I say, because I thoroughly enjoy everything that you do, especially for the Parish Drum Clinic as well. So thank you very much for that. Joe, as I say, just noticed the time. I want to leave this year as we start it, and I want to basically try and get your concept on it, because obviously you slightly different concept to everyone else's. What makes a good drummer?
Ooh. How long's a piece of string? Good timing. Somebody that can play in time. More importantly, somebody that's got tonality and good ideas. If the drummers that I love are drummers that write musical drum parts, and memorable musical drum parts, that understand that tonality is one of the most important aspects of you communicating yourself as a musician. And when I hire drummers for things, it's a given that they can play in time. It's more about how are they, as a musician themselves, how are they applying themselves to their tonality? What they're saying to me. Even the context of a busy pop gig with tracks and all that going on, there still is space for a musician to be heard. So tonality, character in their playing, timing is a given.
Thank you very much. To say we've always we've discussed many things today, but it's always come back to the drums. It's music that we play first. It just so happens we play on the greatest instrument that's ever been developed. It's musical first, and I like to think about when I play, it is about the sound that you create as well. That it's a soundscape. Why do we have for instance, I've got all pretty much all my drum kit stuff basically up here. A few bits at home, but have to keep one at home just in case a gig comes in, don't you? But it's why do we have different kits? Because obviously the actual gig requires it, but also for sound wise, why are you doing it on that one when you can basically create the sound on something else? Why do we have many different cymbals? Well, it's to create the sound that we basically want to achieve. Always looking at sometimes I think Pete's been very lucky. He's found that ride that is basically it's just like that's it. That's the ride. I've got some amazing rides, but I'm still
but it's the way I play it as well.
Yeah, but it works for you, doesn't it? That's this amazing thing. I've got some.
Well, if you spend £500 on a really nice ride cymbal, and if your hand technique is poor, you're kind of wasting your money.
Yeah.
What your hands do, how your stick makes contact with that drum or cymbal, is absolutely pivotal to the quality of tone that you're going to get from it. And if you haven't got that sorted out, then spending all the money in the world on expensive cymbals and snare drums is not going to make you sound better. Yes. Your sound comes from your hands. Your sound comes from how you hold that stick and what happens at the moment that stick makes contact with the playing surface.
Yeah.
I can make a £200 drum set sound great, but if you have poor technique, you can spend £10,000 on drums and cymbals, and they're not going to sound any good. It's a really important thing that drummers need to be across.
Yeah, 100%.
It's what the old drummers used to call having a touch on the instrument, and it's something that it's a turn of phrase that you hardly hear anymore, but it's really important. People get negative about technique, and I understand why that happens, and there's a whole lot of hang-ups about technique that I'm not even going to start to go into here. But technique gives you confidence, and it gives you the ability to sound good. Having a lot of technique is like having. It's like let me see. On here? One. Oh, I can't see what I'm looking for. Oh yeah, here it is, right here.
The dictionary.
Yes, having good technique is like knowing every word that's in here, but knowing when not to use them. Okay, having all that knowledge and just putting it just won't fit in my back pocket, but just putting it in your back pocket and knowing when is the right time to use it. As I say, you've got good technique that gives you confidence, and it gives you the biggest possible range in which to express yourself on the instrument. And when it comes to coming up with parts, if you've got much more to choose from, you have the chance of being the next Steve Gadd or the next Jeff Porcaro or the next Questlove or whoever, and coming up with that great drum part. If you have that knowledge, then you've got so much to call upon, rather than just kind of putting it just guessing blindly and hoping that something great is going to come out. So for drummers, technical knowledge, musical knowledge is advantageous, and it's very powerful. Don't ever misunderstand. People misunderstand technique. They think it's about playing fast and having like 6 pedals like Thomas Lang or whatever to do that. That's not technique. What technique is about at all. So I can't stress this too strongly. This is not is the means of expressing yourself musically on the drums and having the knowledge of when not to do so.
Yeah. Thank you, Pete. That's absolutely spot on. And I think everyone, we've talked about this so many times, but what I'd like to say is, like, you know, I've got all these cymbals, but there's always one that I always go back to because I can do whatever I want with it. And I think that's you just basically jumped in with it. So thank you, Pete, for actually extending basically what I wanted to say, and elegantly done, because obviously you read your dictionary because it's right to hand behind you all the time, which is amazing. I should maybe start reading. Yeah, well, we could see it. We could see it. Guys, obviously, it's we've only got a minute to go. A couple of things I want to say is, so Martin Ollie was saying, my dad was the drummer also. He gave me a book, Master Method of Drumming by Norman Burns, which I still have. Invaluable stuff in there. It was 4 shillings in 1951. So Thomas Lang does play 6 pedals, but he's only cut down... but only on his cut-down Umpar kit. That's from Mike Tuppett. So thank you, Mike. I'd love to see...
Thank you, Mike. You're, as always...
Would like to see Thomas Lang playing an Umpar band. Yeah, he's done well. But thank you ever so much, guys, for watching. You know, for being really supporters of what we've been trying to do in this year, which we obviously never ever predicted, unless you were obviously a prediction person, which there has been a few of those. But thank you again for your support throughout this year, for the PD Chat Show, and the conversations as well on Instagram, and the countdown as well, and everything that basically we have done this year with the PDC. We will be back next year. We'll hopefully be bigger and better. And obviously you can see I'm having a rest from building work now because my hands can't take it. And after this show, just to let you know, to indulge it, see this kit behind me? I've had it since I was 12. I've never had it in this setup because when I was a young boy, I didn't have the 15 by 14 down there racked on. So I've never had this sit up. I haven't had it for a couple of years set out. So after this chat show, because we've got no one around us now, I'm having a blast on that. So that's going to indulge myself before Christmas. And then we'll see what happens in the new year with that. So Merry Christmas and happy 2021, PDC. Thank you very much. And thank you very much out there. So there's only one thing left to do is, first of all, is to thank our special guest, Joe. Thank you ever so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure. As I say, everybody that's been on the chat show has been absolutely superb, and you're no exception. So thank you ever so much for being with us on the PD Chat Show here at the BBC. So thank you very much for joining. And Pete, can I just say thank you again? I don't think I can express enough how much appreciation I've got for your support throughout the Palace Drum Clinic. For its over 4 years now, as we're coming into our 5th season. So thank you ever so much, and thank you very much for being one of the best panel members I can possibly have. So thank you very much for that.
My pleasure.
So and we also again we must just thank Rob Bryan, being selfish, going out playing with other people. How dare he in a time like this? But thank you ever so much, Rob, as well. Invaluable stuff, and obviously all the people I've mentioned as well. So throughout this 2 seasons worth in 2020. So thank you ever so much, guys, for watching. Now, you have a great Christmas, okay? Be safe doing it because we want to see you in 2021. So Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and it's thank you very much from the Palace Drum Clinic. So thank you very much, guys, for watching. Stay safe, and we'll see you in 2021. Take care, everyone now. Goodbye.